Hey everybody, I'm Rick Beato. In today's episode of Everything Music, we're going to talk about secondary dominants, secondary diminished seventh chords, and the cycle of fifths. That's coming up next. So what are secondary dominants? Well, very, very simply put, you have a primary dominant in your key. Let's say you're in the key of C. The 5 chord in the key of C is your primary dominant chord, which would be G or G7, okay, to C. Your secondary dominants will fall essentially on the 2 through 6 chords, okay? So the 2 chord in the key of C, let's say we're using minor 7th chords, would be D minor 7. So the secondary dominant, which is going to be called the 5 of 2, or the 5 chord of the 2 chord, would be an A7. Because A7 is the 5 chord in D minor. Okay? Well, you also have a corresponding secondary diminished 7th chord that's actually related to the dominant 7th chord. Okay? The secondary diminished 7th chord is a half step below the root of the primary chord that you're going to. So in this case, the 2 chord, D minor 7, the secondary dominant would be A7, or I'm using A7 flat 9, or there's D minor 7, and there's C sharp diminished 7th, which is the secondary diminished 7th chord. Well, A7 flat 9 and C sharp diminished 7th are the same chord, okay? They share virtually all the same notes. Okay, you got C sharp, which is the 3rd of A7, flat 9. You have the flat 7, which is G. B flat is a flat 9, and E is the 5th. Okay, if I just put an A in the base of it, it becomes an A7 flat 9. So A7 flat 9, the secondary dominant of the D minor 7, okay, that's called the 5 of 2, because it's the 5 chord of the 2 chord, is the same as the secondary diminished 7 of 2, or the 7 diminished 7 of 2. They're the same chord. So the same approach for soloing or writing would apply for both those. Well, this actually works pretty much for all secondary dominant chords. So they have a secondary dominant chord, and then they have a secondary diminished 7th chord. The secondary diminished 7th chord is always a half step below the root. Secondary dominant chord is always a 4th below the root. So if you have E minor 7, the 3 chord, the 5 of 3 is B7, or the 7 diminished 7 of 3 is D sharp diminished 7th. So you got... It sounds exactly the same. E minor 7 to B7 flat 9, E minor 7 to D sharp diminished 7th. Same notes, same thing you'd solo over. Okay, you use the dominant diminished scale off of B in that case, the half step, whole step, or you'd use the tonic diminished scale off D sharp, the whole step, half step scale, which are all the same notes. Okay, so these are completely related. A lot of people get confused by them because they have different names, but they're pretty much the exact same thing. So then you go up to the 4 chord, F major 7, the 5 of 4 would be C7, okay, or the diminished 7th of 4, the secondary diminished 7th chord would be an E diminished 7th, or 5-7 of 4 to 7 diminished 7th of 4. Same thing, you go to the 5 chord. 5 chords, so that's G7, 5 chord in the key of C. The secondary dominant would be D7, or you can make it D7 flat 9, right? Or you can make it F sharp diminished 7, which would be the 7 diminished 7 of 5 to 5. Or the same thing works for the 6th chord. In this case, A minor 7. Okay, the 5-7 of A minor 7 would be E7 flat 9, or E7. Or the secondary diminished 7th chord would be G sharp diminished 7th. Well, these also have another name that jazz players use. It's called back cycling. Anytime you have a chord, let's say a 2 chord to 5 chord, you can back cycle for 2 beats to add more harmonic interest. Okay, so what did I do? I did 2 chord, back cycle up to the 5/7 of 2, back to the 2, to the 5, to the 1, as opposed to going 1 bar per chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chord, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. So I'm in that case, the 5/7 of 2 is in the same bar as the 2 chord. So 2 chord, 2 beats, 5/7 of 2 for 2 beats, then 2 more beats of the 2 chord because you have to resolve it, and then to 2 beats of the 5 chord. So instead of having A minor 7 for a full bar, D7 for a full bar, and then G major 7, you're going A minor 7 to E7 flat 9, then to A minor 7, D7, or D7 flat 9, or D7 sharp 9, or whatever. Okay, one point I want to make before we go on is the difference between the analysis of what we're doing in relation to classical music or jazz. In classical music, the secondary dominants and the secondary diminished chords would essentially be reduced to triads on the primary chords. Okay, so it would be, instead of the 5/7 of 2, for example, okay, the 2 chord being D minor, the 5/7 would still be A7, but it would be resolving to a D minor instead of a D minor 7. I'm talking about this in more of a jazz context, but it's basically the same. The same principles will apply, and the diminished 7th chords will work in the same way as well. They could be also diminished triads, okay, without the double flatted 7th. So I just want to make that point clear. Now let's talk about one last thing before I get to some examples. I want to talk about the cycle of fifths. Now the cycle of fifths is essentially, let's say I start on C and I'm playing so I'm going through and playing 5/1 cadences using dominant chords. C7, F7, B flat 7, E flat 7, A flat 7, D flat 7, F sharp 7, B7, E7, A7, D7, G7, C7. Now, why is that important? Well, there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with those. First of all, it's understanding cadences. If I were to play over this, let's say I'm playing over a succession of cycling through the circle of fifths. Okay, so what did I just do? I just basically was improvising over those chords starting on C7. I ended on A7. So C7. And then F7, B flat 7, E flat 7, A flat 7, and so on and so forth. That is called playing over the cycle. Now, where can you use cycling? Well, we're going to get to that here in a little bit. Okay, let's talk about how to use these secondary dominants and secondary diminished 7th chords in soloing. Okay, so let's put this into action. I'm going to play this over. I'm going to do the secondary dominant, the 5 of 2 in a 2/5 progression. So what am I doing there? I'm playing on the D minor chord. So I'm playing essentially D minor sound, D minor 9 sound. Then on the A7 chord, I'm applying E flat over A, so it's a sharp 5 flat 9 flat 5 sound. Then I think I did. To resolve. Da, 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 da. Then I'm using a D flat major over G, which is again a flat 9, flat 5 sound. And resolving to the 9th on the C add 9 chord. And I'd use a little Lydian sound. Do something like that. So let me play it one more time for you. So that's one way that you can use a back cycling. I used a 5/7 of 2, so I did D minor, 5/7 of 2, but I made it kind of a little hipper by playing this sound, flat 9, flat 5, sharp 5 sound, because I really played this E flat add 9 over A, and then I went to D minor 7, then I went to G 7 flat 5 flat 9, great sound. Then I went to a major 9 sharp 11 sound on the 1 chord. So now I'm going to play over D minor 7, C sharp diminished 7, which is a 7 diminished 7 of 2, back to D minor 7, the 2 chord, to the 5 chord G7 to C major 7. It's going to go something like this. Okay, so what was I doing on that one? I started on a D minor scale, and I played root, 9th, 3rd, 4th, 5th, flat 7, and I did a early resolution into that C sharp diminished sound, and I played the root to the double flatted 7th, those are 2 chord tones, and then to the major 9, that's a tension note over that, right? That's a color tone. To the flat 6, which is another tension note on that. Okay. So I'm using some nice tension notes on there. I'm not just using notes of the arpeggio. I could have gone, which would have been boring. I could have done a scalar, which would have been boring too. So I decided to take some interesting intervals and 2 chord tones, 2 non-chord tones, or 2 tension notes over. I resolved that D minor, 5th, 4th to the 3rd, and then on the G chord I used a G altered. I used a D flat add 9 arpeggio, and then on the C major 7, which I was actually playing the C major 7 sharp 5 or C Lydian augmented, I played. I used an E add 9. It's a great sound, which resolves to that 13 there on that. So it's a cool, more modern kind of sound to use if you're going to play something like that, where you're going to do some secondary diminished chords. Better to use some color tones on them and much hipper modern lines. Okay, another cool thing that jazz players have been using forever is the cycle, as we call it, or it's really kind of the circle of fifths. So I'm going to be playing C, F7, B flat 7, E flat 7, A flat 7, D flat 7, G flat 7 or F sharp 7, B7, E7, A7, D7, G7, C7. And I'm going to go around it a couple different times and see if I can play on it. So here we go. Tricky to play over, to keep it going. I used to challenge myself to see how long I could play over it and how fast I could play over it when I was back in college. But knowing where those resolutions are all over the guitar, I started down here. So I'm going through a few different patterns here. I've probably got 4 or 5 patterns that I'm playing. Really hard to play. By doing that, you know where all those sevenths to thirds are all over the guitar, and you get used to hearing those. Now, this isn't just to know on the guitar. You want to learn it on every instrument. If you play sax, play trumpet, whatever it is, you want to know where those flat 7 to 3 resolutions are. C7 resolved, that flat 7 resolves to the 3rd of the F major. Flat 7 to the 3rd, the B flat major. Then that flat 7 of B flat major resolves to the 3rd of E flat major. So when I'm saying this, I mean learn it on every instrument. Know where those resolutions are, because that's going to enable you to have your playing, have your internal lines make sense as well, where they actually have all your resolution tendencies are moving in the right direction. Okay, so here's an example of how to use the cycle practically. This is an F blues. I'm going to play one chorus of an F blues on the piano here, and then it's going to go into the cycle on the second chorus. And it's basically going to play over the first 4 bars of the second chorus. It's going to start the cycle a half step above the key that we're in, which is F's, on F sharp 7. So it's going to go in the first bar, F sharp 7, B7, second bar, E7, A7, third bar, D7, G7, fourth bar, C7, F7, and then the 5th bar, down to the 5th bar, where it normally goes to B flat 7, it's going to go to B flat 7. To get the cycle to work out, where it's 2 chords per bar, if you started a half step above the root of the blues that you're in, it will intersect with the correct 4 chord on the downbeat of the 5th bar. Listen to it. Here it comes. B flat 7, right there. Okay? One more time. Cycle. That's a great use of the cycle. That's actually a very jazz use of the cycle. Now, that's why you want to practice these resolutions and figure out all the different finger combinations that you need to on your instrument. You can play, you know, or you can play, or you can play 1, 2, 3, 5 patterns, 1, 3, 5 flat 7, resolving to 3. You can do any type of patterns. I can do, you know, I can play. Okay, so that's kind of a 1, 5, 3, flat 7 to the 3rd of the F7. So I'm on C. I'm on C7. Root, 5th, 3rd, flat 7 resolves to the 3rd of F7. Resolve flat 7 to the 3rd of the B flat 7, so on and so forth. Well, that's all for now. Please subscribe here and at my Everything Music Facebook page. Also, the Beato Book is available at the link provided below. The Beato Book is a book that I wrote. It's 300 and some odd pages long, and it's dealing with all the concepts that I've been talking about in these videos. Thank you very much. I'm Rick Beato.